Welcome back to the channel Liberty Coin Value. Today we are going to dive deep into the fascinating history, mystery, and unbelievable value of the 1973 United States 1-dime coin, a coin that most people would pass off as just a simple 10-cent piece in their pocket change, but which in certain extraordinary cases has been valued at a jaw-dropping $654 million due to its unique errors, minting mistakes, and historical significance. And in this discussion we are going to unfold every possible detail about why this small coin can hold such immense value, how mint mark errors and other variations contribute to its rarity, and what collectors and enthusiasts need to know if they are ever lucky enough to come across one of these gems. Because while most dimes minted in 1973 are perfectly ordinary and worth just 10 cents, there are a select few era coins that have captured the imagination of the numismatic world, transforming an everyday piece of change into an object of desire, a financial treasure, and a piece of history that tells the story of the United States Mint, its production process, and the accidents that sometimes slip through quality control to become legendary collector's items. So let's begin by understanding the backdrop of the 1973 dime, which belongs to the Roosevelt dime series first introduced in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away the year before and was honored on the nation's dime because of his leadership during the Great Depression and World War II, as well as his commitment to fighting polio, with the March of Dimes campaign being directly associated with him. And by 1973 the Roosevelt dime had already been a part of everyday commerce for nearly 3 decades, with billions of examples struck, primarily from copper-nickel-clad compositions since 1965, when the mint shifted away from 90% silver dimes due to rising silver prices, meaning that the 1973 dime was technically a common issue with no silver content and therefore no intrinsic bullion value, which makes its rise to multi-million-dollar status all the more incredible because it is not about metal content but about rarity, mistakes, and errors that can elevate a mundane coin into a priceless rarity. And among these the most significant are minting errors such as doubled dies, off-center strikes, missing mint marks, incorrect planchets, overstrikes, die breaks, and misaligned dies, each of which can produce a unique collectible that sparks competitive bidding wars among collectors. And in the case of the 1973 dime, some spectacular mint mark errors are at the heart of its mystique, because mint marks are tiny letters that indicate where a coin was struck, with 1973 dimes being produced primarily at the Philadelphia Mint, which at that time did not use a mint mark, the Denver Mint, with a D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint, with an S mint mark usually reserved for proof coins. And it is known that some dimes struck in 1973 were released with unusual mint mark variations, including missing mint marks where there should have been one, repunched mint marks where the D or S appears doubled, and even transitional errors where a coin might bear characteristics of an earlier or later year, and these anomalies make them dramatically more valuable than ordinary coins, with the ultimate crown jewel being error dimes that not only feature mint mark mistakes but also multiple compounded errors such as double dies combined with off-center strikes or mis-struck planchets, which are virtually one of a kind and thus can reach astronomical prices. And this is where the legend of the $654 million 1973 dime emerges, a coin so rare and unique that it has become the stuff of legend among numismatists. Because while no ordinary 1973 dime could ever command such a price, when collectors and investors encounter a specimen that is so unique, tied to historical significance, and impossible to replicate, its value transcends mere face value and enters into the realm of priceless art, a tangible artifact of American history, and a symbol of human fascination with rarity. And if we think about why era coins can reach such mind-bending values, we must consider supply and demand, because while billions of regular dimes exist and therefore have no premium value, when a mistake is made it is usually caught early and corrected, meaning that only a handful of era coins survive, often accidentally released into circulation, sometimes hoarded by mint workers or discovered decades later in rolls of coins. And the excitement of finding such an error fuels intense bidding among collectors who understand that they are competing for something truly unique, something that no mint can intentionally reproduce. Because once an error is identified, the dies are corrected and the mistake is gone forever, leaving only the few error coins that slip through. And the 1973 dime is a perfect case study of this phenomenon, because the decade of the 1970s was a period of transition for the United States Mint, adjusting to changes in coin composition, refining the copper-nickel clad method, and experimenting with die preparation techniques, and this environment created conditions ripe for unusual mistakes, from die clashes where designs overlapped incorrectly, to filled mint marks where grease clogged the die and left a faint or missing mint mark, to planchet errors where a dime was struck on a foreign coin blank or on a blank intended for another denomination such as a penny or a quarter, and when you combine such errors with the rarity of survival, you get a recipe for astronomical valuations. So when we hear of a 1973 dime fetching or being valued at $654 million, it is the culmination of rarity, collector demand, historical narrative, and the romance of owning something no one else can, because let's not forget that the numismatic market is also influenced by storytelling, by the legend that grows around a coin, the drama of its discovery, and the pride of possession. And the 1973 dime has all of these elements because not only does it belong to the ever-popular Roosevelt dime series, but its minting anomalies tied directly to the story of the U.S. Mint in the 1970s, to the broader history of American coinage moving away from silver, and to the culture of coin collecting that was exploding in popularity during the mid-20th century. And if we go deeper into specific era categories, we can highlight some known varieties of 1973 dimes that can fetch staggering sums, such as the 1973 no-S proof dime, a famous variety where proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint were accidentally released without the S mint mark, and these no-S proof dimes are incredibly rare and highly sought after, commanding tens of thousands of dollars at auction in high grade. And when you imagine an ultra-rare combination of such an era with an additional doubled die of verse or reverse, or struck on the wrong planchet, you start to see how valuations could escalate to astronomical levels in the collector's imagination. And another fascinating possibility is transitional errors, where a coin is struck with a die intended for another year, creating a mule or hybrid that should not exist, and although such pieces are extraordinarily rare, they represent the pinnacle of minting errors and are often valued in the millions. So in theory, a 1973 dime with multiple compounded errors could indeed be considered a priceless specimen. And as collectors, we must also understand the grading system that adds another layer of value, because the condition of a coin, measured on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, can dramatically affect its worth, with mint state coins in MS 65 or higher, or proof coins graded PR 70, being worth exponentially more than circulated examples. And when a rare era coin like a 1973 no-S proof dime survives in flawless condition, its price multiplies. Because collectors crave perfection combined with rarity, making it possible for such a coin to become the centerpiece of a world-class collection. And beyond grading, we must consider provenance, because the story of a coin's ownership, its auction history, and its appearance in famous collections all contribute to its mystique. So a 1973 dime that has passed through the hands of legendary collectors or been featured in major exhibitions could easily become priceless, and in such cases, valuation numbers like $654 million, though extraordinary, are not just about intrinsic worth but about symbolic worth, reflecting the desire of wealthy collectors or institutions to own an irreplaceable artifact. And when you consider how global the coin collecting community has become, with billionaires, museums, and private investors all competing for the rarest specimens, you begin to understand how a small dime can command a valuation larger than the GDP of some countries, because value is not always about size, weight, or material, but about uniqueness, rarity, and historical narrative. And the 1973 dime is a shining example of this, because while most people would overlook it as a simple coin, in the right circumstances it becomes a legendary treasure. And this story should also inspire everyone watching or listening to start paying closer attention to their pocket change, to check rolls of coins, to look carefully at dates and mint marks, because treasures are still out. They're waiting to be discovered, and history is full of stories of ordinary people who found life-changing wealth in a small coin they picked up from circulation. And the 1973 dime continues this legacy, proving that extraordinary value can be hidden in plain sight, waiting only for the trained eye to recognize it. And so as we reflect on the unbelievable journey of this little coin from 10 cents to hundreds of millions, we realize that numismatics is not just about collecting coins, it is about preserving history. We explore coins that may look ordinary at first glance but hold hidden stories, rare errors, and historical mysteries that transform them from simple pocket change into treasures worth unimaginable fortunes. And today we are going to explore in incredible depth the 2005 Roosevelt dime. A coin that is normally worth just 10 cents but has been reported and speculated in rare error-filled examples to carry a staggering value of up to $766 million. And while at first hearing this number might sound exaggerated or unrealistic, when we peel back the layers of coin production history, the intricate world of minting errors, collector demand, unique varieties, and the sheer thrill of rarity, the picture becomes much clearer as to why certain examples of this coin could command such astronomical prices in specialized markets. So let us begin by setting the historical scene. In 2005, the United States Mint struck Roosevelt dimes in both Philadelphia, denoted by the P mint mark, and Denver, denoted by the D, and these coins followed the same design that has been in place since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt with his profile on the obverse and the torch flanked by an olive branch and oak branch on the reverse. Yet as with many modern circulation coins, despite the billions produced in total, small mistakes during the striking process, variations in the dies, planchet preparation errors, or even intentional anomalies can lead to the creation of unique coins that collectors are willing to pay extreme sums to acquire, because numismatics is not just about metal but about rarity, history, and the stories coins tell. Now, when we look specifically at the 2005 P dime, we must understand that most of these coins are worth their face value and can be found in circulation to this very day, but in extremely rare instances some have been discovered with major minting errors, doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, missing clad layers, mule errors where the wrong die was paired, and even mysterious variations in the mint mark. And it is these categories of mistakes that elevate a coin from ordinary to extraordinary, with collectors chasing after them like buried treasure, and among these categories, mintmark errors stand out significantly because the presence, absence, or misplacement of a mintmark can drastically alter a coin's value. With some famous examples from U.S. coin history such as the 1922 No D Lincoln cent or the 1975 No S proof dime selling for tens of thousands of dollars or more, so when we combine this historical precedent with the 2005 P dime, it is easy to see why a particularly unusual or spectacularly rare example could be valued not just in the millions but in the hundreds of millions if the coin's uniqueness is undisputed, its authenticity is proven, and if wealthy collectors enter into bidding wars over it. The 2005 Philadelphia dime has been reported in numismatic circles to exist with strange anomalies like doubled dies on the torch, extra thickness in the lettering of Liberty and I in God We Trust, as well as rotated dies where the obverse and reverse are misaligned, and such varieties instantly catch the eye of error collectors. But the most fascinating possibilities include off-metal strikes where instead of being struck on a dime planchet, the coin is accidentally struck on a cent planchet, a nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin planchet left inside the presses, creating hybrid coins that are so rare that they might be unique in the world. And in such cases, auction prices can skyrocket because collectors know that ownership of such a coin places them in possession of a one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure. Now, why would the number $766 million be attached to this dime? Well, we must consider that valuations at such levels come not merely from the rarity itself but from speculation, exaggerated reports, and the potential of an ultra-wealthy collector seeing the coin not just as a collectible but as an investment, an art piece, or a status symbol. Much like how paintings from the great masters sell for hundreds of millions at auction despite their original materials being worth very little, here too, the dime's base value is 10 cents, but the error, the uniqueness, and the frenzy of competition can inflate its market worth beyond imagination, and in theory, a perfect storm of rarity, error type, publicity, and collector interest could indeed justify such a valuation, especially if only a single example exists. Diving deeper into mint errors that might be present on a 2005 P dime, we must mention doubled dies where letters and details look duplicated due to a misalignment during hubbing, and collectors pay thousands for strong doubled dies on popular series like Lincoln cents, so if a dramatic doubled die is discovered on the 2005 dime, its value could be astronomical. Similarly, off-center strikes where part of the design is missing and a crescent of blank planchet is visible are popular among collectors, with extreme off-centers of 75% or more fetching high premiums, and if such an error appeared on a 2005 dime with the P mint mark, the rarity would grow substantially. Missing clad layers are another exciting error, where the copper core is exposed, giving the dime a golden or coppery appearance, and such errors have fetched thousands at auction. But a perfectly preserved and highly dramatic example could in theory climb into the millions. Even rarer and more valuable are mule errors, where dies of two different coins are mistakenly paired, and if a 2005 dime was struck with, say, the reverse of a quarter or another denomination, this would instantly be one of the greatest modern U.S. mint errors ever discovered, and its valuation could easily climb to unprecedented heights. Especially since collectors of error coins compete fiercely to own the most spectacular pieces, and history has shown that such competition can elevate prices far beyond book values. Another fascinating possibility involves mintmark anomalies, because the p-mintmark introduced in 1980 has been standard for Philadelphia coins, but on occasion the mintmark can be missing, doubled, misplaced, or even repunched, and any deviation from the standard can drastically affect the coin's desirability. A 2005 dime without a mintmark where it should have one would immediately be considered an ultra-rarity, echoing the famous 1982 no-p dime which sells for thousands, but a 2005 example could potentially surpass all expectations given its modernity and collector demand, and the discovery of such an anomaly could ignite a frenzy among the numismatic community. Furthermore, we must not forget the role of grading in determining value. A coin graded by PCGS or NGC as MS70 with a spectacular error would command exponentially more than a circulated example, because condition combined with rarity creates a multiplier effect on value. And if the fabled $766 million coin exists, it would almost certainly have to be in pristine condition, possibly a unique proof or mint state example with the error standing out boldly and undeniably. Now, let us consider why people are fascinated by these stories. Coins like the 2005 p-dime remind us that even in our everyday change, treasures may hide unnoticed, waiting for a sharp-eyed collector or an accidental discovery to bring them to light. And the allure of finding a coin worth hundreds of millions in your pocket change is irresistible, feeding into dreams of instant fortune. And that is why tales of ultra-valuable modern coins continue to circulate and inspire both novice collectors and seasoned numismatists, because they embody the mystery and excitement of the hunt. Looking back at numismatic history, we see parallels that justify such fascination. The 1943 copper cent, a mint error, sold for over $1 million despite being a simple penny. The 1975 no-S proof dime is worth tens of thousands, and the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, of which only 5 exist, has fetched millions at auction. So the precedent for enormous valuations based on rarity is clear, and if only one known 2005 p-dime with a spectacular never-before-seen error exists, its potential market worth could indeed be inflated into the hundreds of millions, especially if bidding wars erupt among the world's wealthiest collectors who view such coins not just as numismatic items but as historical artifacts and status-defining trophies. Moreover, the cultural impact of Roosevelt dimes adds another layer of value, because the design has remained largely unchanged for decades, tying generations together, and errors within such a long-running series become anchors of rarity within a sea of uniformity, magnifying their appeal. As we explore all these factors, from mint errors, historical precedents, collector psychology, auction dynamics, and grading, the story of the 2005 p-dime becomes not just about a small piece of metal but about possibility, rarity, and the eternal human fascination with hidden treasures. And it is this combination that leads some to speculate that such a coin could be worth up to $766 million, not because of the silver content, it contains none, but because of the rarity, uniqueness, and imagination it inspires. So while most 2005 p-dimes will never be worth more than face value, the potential existence of a one-of-a-kind spectacular mint era transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, proving that in the world of coins, value is not limited to the numbers stamped on their surface but expands to encompass history, rarity, and human desire. And that is what makes the hunt for the 2005 p-dime so thrilling, so legendary, and so endlessly fascinating to collectors around the world.